Okay.
Oh, you know when you lean back on your cheap, crappy chair a little bit too much?
Hey, I didn't choose to grow this.
Pressing numpad and nothing's happening.
Why are you playing it if you're bitching about it?
Hey, you kicked the ball over, now you get it.
Right.
Fucking broke me legs, mate.
Ask more questions and accept it. Midichlorians, motherfucker.
Look at our bottom.
No, it wasn't glorious.
Listen, I carried your asses!
You did, Tom. Congratulations.
Hello there everyone, and welcome to Live Gaming Gathering, where we talk about games, life, and anything we find interesting in our daily lives. And today I'm joined by Ray, just Ray today.
Hello.
Just Ray, and not because all our friends deleted us from Facebook, but because our person decided was the best for us to make us some sort of personal podcast or personal episode for today, as me and Ray are the more active people when it comes to content creation. Adrian, Gian, or Dark, or anyone else we know doesn't really focus on content creation as much as we do, and I've always been that guy behind the scenes creating a reason for us to create some sort of content for the YouTube channel, for something else, wherever it may be. So yeah, decided to do, I think it's best for us just to do like a reflection episode of how the podcast has been doing and what we're trying to achieve with the podcast, what we're trying to achieve with the channel, or what you're trying to achieve with your voice acting, all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Well, that should be obvious what I'm trying to do with voice acting. I'm just trying to make a living. I mean, I'm not looking for fucking fame or fortune or a shit ton of money. Believe me. I mean, if I'm good enough, that'll come on its own. But I'm really just, honestly, the reason why I got into this is, like I said before, I really just want to be happy and do something I'm good at and be happy doing it. And in all honesty, like this is it. Like I have never been as professionally happy as I had my whole entire life. And like I've said before, the money and everything else, that'll come in due time. Just got to put the work in to get it.
But yeah, basically this is gonna be a chill podcast, chill episode, just because, again, it's just personal, us rambling about something that we care about, which is basically content creation. And this is the reason why the podcast exists in the first place, because we wanted something to make, something that we can be proud of. And I understand.
We all want to be able to get together, sit down with a microphone in front of us, sit, BS, talk, and take that bit of magic and put it out there for the world. And so far, I guess it's been working really good.
Yeah, I understand that there's a lot of gaming podcasts out there. I get that. And there's not enough time to listen to everything. But I think I always want something for the channel that it lets us to explain our opinions about anything. The reason I created my YouTube channel in the first place is because I want to showcase our gaming moments, whatever those gaming moments are. Back in those Battlefield days, when we just want to showcase that, hey, we had this event, for example, where people gathered and just played against each other. It was like some sort of competitive event, and with teams and everything. It was just awesome. So it was one of those reasons why I created my YouTube channel, just because to share that gaming experience I've been having with everyone else. And
you know what's ironic? I've actually gone back and looked at a lot of those old comp videos of ours, and like they still kind of hold up to this day. I mean, yeah, you can tell
some of them, not all of them.
Content. You go back and you look at some of our older stuff, and then you compare it to now. It's like, wow, those guys really have come a long way. I mean, especially where I'm concerned, where I've gotten a lot more eloquent and a lot better with my speaking. But then again, that all played into, I guess, kind of why I don't know. I had a lot of people tell me that I'm very talented when it comes to voice acting, but I'm that kind of person where it's like, you can tell me I'm talented, you can tell me I'm good, but until I start seeing roles and I start seeing work, I don't necessarily believe it. So I don't know. But like I've made the comment to an acting coach that I interact with a lot, Anthony Pica, and if you don't know who that gentleman is, and you guys are really interested in looking into voice acting or even just learning how to speak better, that gentleman is a treasure trove of information, at least as far as that's concerned. And he's even made the comment. He's like, just for shits and giggles, I went back and looked over some of your stuff and been like, yeah, you guys changed a lot over the years. And we've had other people that have followed us, and especially some of the developers that have been fans and following us for a while. And they've even made the comment, you know, you guys have not like 180'd in terms of quality, because we're still a bunch of ragtag group of players who, you know, we're half-ass organized and we kind of just like throw our stuff out there, but at the same time, there's a magic there that I don't think a whole lot of other productions have. And
I think it's mainly because we do this for as a hobby, and we just want to share that hobby with everyone else. Whatever that may be. For us, it's like literally gaming, but we never focus on gaming only. It's always about like media in general, something that brings people together. That's for me, at least personally. I would not create this podcast if I knew it would be just me talking about something. Like at one point I was thinking like, oh, I should make maybe like 10-minute long videos talking about something that I really care about. But like I said before, I just find it weird when it's just me talking in front of the microphone with the script, basically, talking about something that I care about and just posting. Like it can work, maybe it can work, but I just don't think it's that interesting for people to listen, because there's so many other people out there doing the same thing, whatever the topic is, and I will be just one of those many voices that sound the same.
You don't want to be like an echo chamber, so to speak. And I think that's I think at one point that's the reason why we stopped Battlefield 1 podcast, because it was literally turning into an echo chamber. And I think there was one point where I think the four of us, you, me, Dark, and I think it was like Andre or something like that, we all sat down in order to do an episode, and we're like, well, what do we do this week? And it's like, well, we could talk about this, and this. And it's like, well, we've already covered that so many times, so many different ways, that it's pretty much lost meaning, almost like you beat a horse to death and continue to beat it. So I think that's one of the main reasons why we accomplished what we wanted to with Battlefield 1. As far as I'm concerned, we did.
I personally happy with the way Battlefield 1 podcast. I'm not happy how it ended, but I'm happy how it went on. Just because we started with good intentions, and I think we ended on good intentions. Sure, there were always some episodes that were really like maybe tricky, I guess, or not that interesting, or whatever the case may be. But I'm personally really proud what we did with Battlefield 1 podcast, just because if you re-listen, I think I mentioned in the first episode this brand new podcast. If you re-listen to the podcast now, it still kind of holds up in terms of the discussions we had back then. Just change the game name and maybe just change slightly different details, but still holds up to an extent.
Change the game name around, and that 90% of it will still apply.
Yeah, and I'm kind of glad the way we did, because as I said, I'm not happy how the podcast ended, just because like we just ended abruptly. We just did like 42 episodes or 43, I think it's 42, and we just never did one. And yeah, like you said, yeah, we just dropped it. And yeah, and you're right. The way we dropped it is because one day we just literally came in, and we started to think, shit, what are we gonna talk about this time? We can't discuss everything. There's nothing happening, nothing that we can discuss that we already haven't discussed. So like, what the hell we do? So,
and I think it was a good thing that we kind of stopped it right then and there, because if we'd have had tried to keep going with that, I think we'd have just gotten repetitive, and it would have started sounding lazy, and production value would have dropped immensely. And plus, on top of that, it was getting to be around the time when everybody's personal life was really starting to pick up and get to the point where it's kind of getting harder for us all in order to get together. So there was that involved in it too. I mean, that wasn't the direct reason, but it was a contributor. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I think the back half of the last season, I really was not around a whole hell of a lot, because I'd been working so much. I just didn't have the time anymore. I was wanting to spend time with my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife. So there was a lot of stuff picking up and going on. And then, like I said, when we all got together and we're kind of like, what do we do? I was kind of like, well, the ship's kind of ran its course. There's no need to try and catch up with it and continue on with everything. And like I said, get repetitive like I'm doing now. And it was smart in order to go about it that way. As much as I regret not being able to have a final farewell episode, formal or anything like that, I think it ending the way it did was probably the best way that we could have gone about it.
Yeah, I'm kind of sad that we haven't done like ending episode or something like that. But we did gather around when Battlefield 5 was announced, and we all gathered together just to talk about the reveal.
Yeah, when the alpha came out too, we were all together for that as well. I think that was one of the last time we all got together to do anything up until about nowish. So yeah.
And this podcast that we're making right now, it's been on my mind since last year, even before that, just because I knew that I want to make something for the channel that has some sort of like, it has literally meat and potatoes in it, not just like a simple 10-minute video about something and just next thing, whatever maybe. Or some certain YouTubers are still stuck on one specific franchise or one game. It doesn't matter if it's Battlefield, Fortnite, or some Call of Duty.
Here's one I think I almost guarantee you forgot about. You remember Video Games Please? We did like 2 episodes of that, and
Oh, yeah.
the editing was just so, because the way I wanted to edit it and the way I wanted to put it together and the way I wanted to present it and getting all the footage together and everything goes. I produced both of those episodes. Everything got recorded locally on my end. That was pretty much my project. And then I got 2 episodes into it, and I was like, holy crap, it takes like 4 full days in order to edit and put together one episode. And I mean, the production value was real good. I mean,
it was
scratch my own
okay.
back and say it.
It was okay. It wasn't like the greatest. At least the production quality definitely it was. I mean, it wasn't on par as Battlefield 1 or this. I actually still consider which one is. I don't know. I still think that our current one is better just because it's less cluttered and actually straight to the point. Battlefield 1 podcast was a bit more cluttered with stuff because you had topics on the side and you have something else. It was really meta. But
Video Games Please, I think I edited that one so that any video was representative of what the subject was. Because I think the first episode we did was like it was Arkham Knight. It was right when Arkham Knight came out. As I remember that, because like one of the first segments we did was talking about just like how bad that PC port was.
Oh yeah, I do
man.
remember that.
Now I remember. Holy crap.
I did private those videos just because I was thinking, like, because I was cleaning my channel like a couple of weeks ago, and I'm like, no one wants to see that. I haven't deleted them just because I want to keep them for history lesson or something like that, and maybe I revisit them and maybe republish them just because, like, hey, this is what we did back in the day, and this is where we are right now.
I am 99% sure the first episode is still on my personal YouTube channel, and that is the only episode that is there.
Yeah.
Same thing with the first BFXP news brief. That one, that's on my channel too. And then all of a sudden it just disappeared. And then we moved in and started doing Battlefield 1 podcast. Because here's a little fun fact: Battlefield 1 podcast kind of just came out of thin air for us. It was at one point in time it was you, Dark, and I. We were pretty much just reading off dev feedback that we were getting from CTE, and it finally got to the point where it's like, well, we really don't want to just read the patch notes, just read things, just read what the developers had. And we all just decided, well, instead of just reading it, let's just discuss everything. And that's how Battlefield 1 came out of that.
I do remember how Battlefield 1, the first ever mention of that came around is because was Indy, Yogi Dalundi, the developer, well, former developer DICE, he suggested like, oh, I wish there were like a Battlefield-related podcast or somewhere like that, because there was none. There was like literally no Battlefield-related podcasts anywhere.
No, all you had was your Westy and your Jack Frags and
yeah, you had your YouTubers and stuff,
and that was it. That you had your YouTubers, but there was no. It was just, here's the patch notes, here's what happens, here's my opinion on it, end of video, and there's nothing wrong with that. Don't get me wrong, it does make for good content, obviously, because a lot of these guys are still successful doing that. But my personal input on it is okay, where's the other side of the coin? Where's the discussion part of it that's coming from your average Joe player? And I think that was another reason why when we had this idea in order to do Battlefield 1, we were like, yeah, that makes sense. You know, it's not like we're high and mighty YouTubers. We're not visiting DICE every other week. We're not getting exclusive access or anything like that. Like, we're seeing things on the player level from a player standpoint, reporting as a player. And I think because we never changed from that, that's what made it stand out, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, I try to make, because it's thanks to Yoye that we came up with the idea of the podcast, because I'm thinking like, well, I have a YouTube channel. It's not like I'm doing much on it, so I'm like, yeah, let's do that, because we've been active really at CT, and it will be, I think, perfect to have some sort of discussion platform for anything regarding Battlefield, and that's how it came up. Then you came up with the name just randomly. Oh, there's no Battlefield 1. There's never gonna be a Battlefield 1 game. And 2 years later, a Battlefield 1 game is announced. It's a Volvo 1 game. And I'm like, fuck me.
Yeah, I'm still eating that crow, too.
Yeah, like, fuck me. How the hell they came up with that name, I have no idea. Either way, it's a good name.
I still say somebody ought to cut me a royalty check for that one. It's like, I am owed something for that.
Sometimes I low-key expect or presume that someone was listening to the podcast and someone suggested that name. I don't want to like say, oh, the ones came up with the name, but there was never a reason to name it Battlefield 1 except that we named our podcast Battlefield 1. And like, I don't want to say that, oh, we were up there, but I know there were some developers listening to us, so I want to pretend that maybe someone listened to us and like, yes, let's take that name.
Yeah, I would like to think that that's exactly how it happened. Like they were listening to us either in Stockholm or LA, and they were just like, hey, that's a good title.
Yeah, because
did we ever do an actual Battlefield 1? No? Okay.
Because Battlefield 5 was
the next one.
Because Battlefield 5 was the internal name, and everyone hated it for obvious reasons. But then they came back on that and named this Battlefield V Battlefield 5, which is, I think it's a stupid name for this game, but whatever. Not the point.
You want my honest opinion? It seems too much of a rip, like Metal Gear Solid V. But
yeah,
whatever.
It's not a good name. But anyway, not talking about Battlefield. Regarding when you said that you were editing the podcast and everything, and you realize how hard it is. You have no idea how I am really struggling with this podcast we're doing right now. Not like I'm struggling, but like there's so much stuff that I need to do. For example, I had to sort the Twitter account. I had to sort the layout of this podcast. I had to record the footage of the podcast. I have to edit the podcast. Then I have to figure out how I'm gonna present this on my website, on my personal website, as like, resumes and stuff or portfolios. So like, yeah, this is what I did, and then I have to.
You and I are pretty much in the exact same boat on that one, because as far as voice acting goes, I've got to do pretty much 90% of that as well. I've got to figure out how to market myself. I've got to figure out how to produce content that's going to be marketable, that will draw attention to me. I've got to figure out how to brand myself, which I've now done. If anybody's actually taken a look at my Twitter page as of recently, there's a nice brand new header page there. Woo! I've got to make I'm in the process of making a website right now where clients could take and look at all of my previous work, have one-click access to my demo work and roles that I'm in, and contact form to get a hold of me via email. There's so much stuff that I am like, I'm just hacking at it a little bit at a time, to the point where everything's finally getting evened out. Plus, on top of that, doing audio for auditions, editing that out, having to spend an hour and a half going over even 20 minutes of audio to make sure that everything is pristine as I could possibly make it. Because let's be honest with ourselves, kids. I have absolutely zero acting training at all. Zero. So
I can say the same thing about my intros and stuff. Like, okay.
So like I've.
All right, go on.
But like, so I've got to make myself. I feel like because I don't have like a lot of some of these voice actors have, like a lot of them have a background in theater already, or a background in radio, or a background or anything else. This is my background right here. This is my background. This is the podcasting, doing content with you, doing content on YouTube in general. That has been my background. That's not. And I'm not saying anything against it, but it's not like, oh, well, you didn't go to Juilliard or anything like that. So, I mean, but again, not that I want to rip on people that have done that, because by all means, everybody makes their own path. And if you're successful at it, then by all means, it really worked and it was good. But, those are things that I'm going to invest in later down the line. I would like to take some acting classes. There's 2 specific classes I really want to take. Unfortunately, right now, I just don't have $500 to buy into both of them at the same time. I'm trying to get into commercial work. I just auditioned for Voice Realm, which is a commercial representative voiceover site. They represent a lot of commercial work, like radio commercials, TV commercials where there's audio involved, internet commercials, pretty much anywhere where there's a voiceover in a professional manner. Voice Realm kind of handles that. So I'm waiting on that to get back. So I'm trying to take every avenue I possibly can in order to get work coming my way, and it's starting to work. I've had like I said in the first episode, I've got 2 roles under my belt already. Neither of them are paid. They're both for game mods, but I also have 2 more ahead of me that I'm waiting on recording dates in order to hit. Tom, you know exactly which one I'm talking about on one of them. The other one nobody really knows about, because I've kept that one close to my chest for a while. And there's things that are happening around me that are making me, that I'm getting more and more confident in this. And I'm getting more and more confident in the fact that, yes, I definitely can do this. Not that I'm saying that I had this mentality that I couldn't do it beforehand. I knew for a fact when I got into this that, yes, this is something I can do. Not saying it's easy, not saying I'm snapping my fingers and everything is just falling into place, because it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of mental stress to put yourself out there like that and put your heart and soul into your interpretation of a character, and then to have to deal with rejection on a professional level and understand that the casting director is not personally denying you. The casting director is saying that, yes, your audition was good, we're glad about it, but it's not what we were looking for. And that is one mentality that I see a lot of voice actor that I've seen a lot of tweets here in the last couple of days about voice actors, especially some immature ones that are just like, oh my God, well, you got this role. Holy crap, how did I miss that casting call? Or, wow, I should have gotten that role. Or, wow, my demo sounds exactly like you. Well, how come I didn't get that role? And like, I see toxicity like that, and it sucks. But I don't let it take the wind out of me, because I can deal with that crap. I don't take it personal when I don't hear back from an audition. I don't take it personally when a casting director mails me back and says, hey, thanks for your audition. Sorry, you didn't make the cut. But because I know down the line, when they do need somebody similar, or when they do need something that I can provide for them, I'm going to be the one that they're going to get in touch with.
Yeah, and that's a perfect, reasonable way to approach it, because, like I said, yes, it is really hard to manage the podcast we're doing right now. For me, it's quite hard and time-consuming, but I'm doing this because I care about it. I care about this podcast. I care about the quality. I care about everything we do, because I believe this can be something important for anyone, not only me, but for anyone that wants to come in and speak about anything, whatever they have on their minds. I care about this podcast, and it takes a lot of work. Yes, it takes a lot of work. I'm not complaining that I have a lot of time, like I have to waste a lot, like, well, not waste, I have to spend a lot of time doing a lot of this work just to release an episode of the podcast, and then release some small bits of the podcast, because I understand that not everyone has all the time in the world to watch the whole podcast, let alone multiple podcasts. So that's why.
But at the end of the day, you can have the same mentality that I have when everything's done and it's out there. You can be like, look, I did the thing. I had the balls in order to do it. I went ahead and did it. It was hard. I fought my neck off in order to get it done. And that makes you 10 times more prouder to have accomplished something than when shit just falls into place. Because I'll tell you right now, at this point in my career, if things were just falling into place, I don't think I'd be having as much fun as I am right now. I'm going to be honest. I'd be like, wow, this is easy. I don't like things to come easy, honestly. I like a little bit of a challenge in my life. Sometimes, I kind of would wish some things would kind of just like fall into place. But from what I've learned, the universe, it will unfold as it always should. It doesn't matter how much you fight it. Doesn't matter how much you try to make it go your direction. You just got to do you the best you possibly can. And the universe will unfold and will reward you in ways that you possibly never even could. It might not even be fiscally initially off the bat. Money comes later. Money will always come. If you're good at something, the money will come in time. I have learned this.
This podcast is, for example, is not making money whatsoever. This is literally just a passion project.
But that's the thing. Like I said, we're not doing this for the money. We're not doing this for ad revenue. Like, we could easily sit and barf out content for days on end that would just be out there to just make ad revenue. But that's not what we're about, and we never were about that. I'm glad we never have been.
I remember back in my early YouTube days when I was making content, and I was making doesn't matter what I was making back in the day, whether it would be League of Legends videos or something like that. Yes, I was thinking like, oh, I have to push this content out because reasons. And I hated myself for so many reasons, because the quality wasn't there or something like that. I just focused on pushing the video out and just getting like my first ever 100 subscribers or 1,000 subscribers or whatever the subscribers are or whatever. Even with the trailers, I'm like, just need to push that out before this specific date, which is great to have deadlines, but when the mentality is in the wrong place, it doesn't become enjoyable. It just becomes a chore, and it's quite horrible mentality to work with, just because you don't focus on the quality anymore. You just focus just to push something out, which is...
Yeah, and if you're so focused on trying to just get something out the door, it's so easy in order to just overlook things. Like, and I've done it already. I've done it with an audition, and I kick myself for that fact. I sat down, figured, oh, this would be easy in order to do, or I've looked at an audition before and went, oh, this would be easy as hell. I can sit down and do this real quick. And then when I finally sit down and get ready to start putting words to audio, I go, whoa, I really probably should have stopped and thought this through a little bit more. Like there was an accent or something that I didn't catch when I initially breezed through the audition. Or because I'll be honest with you, when you're looking at anywhere from like 30 to 40 plus posted auditions a day in between 6 or 7 different websites, it's very easy in order to lose track of details. So I've had to teach myself in order to actually slow down, read an audition front to back. While I'm reading the audition, I'm interpreting the character in my head as I go, and in order to determine if that is something that I should audition for or not. I can audition for anything and everything I want. I can audition for everything. The question is whether or not it is something that I should do. Like,
I can't do a kid's voice very well, so you don't see me going out and really auditioning for them a whole lot.
what you do see me auditioning for is a lot of things where I'm more or less in my natural tone, because it comes off better like that. It's more relaxed. It's more natural. And when you do something naturally, it's so much easier.
Although I do have a question though. How do you, for example, handle the feedback? Well, okay, not maybe probably wrong question. How often the producers or casting directors or whoever is casting you, sending you the feedback? Is it like on a regular? Is every casting director send you feedback?
Never, ever. I will say this to anybody who is listening to this with an interest in voice acting. If you want to get into this profession, get it out of your head that you are going to get feedback from casting directors and producers. I cannot stress that enough, and a lot of voice actors cannot stress it enough in of themselves. It doesn't matter what level of the playing field you're on either. Casting directors are not your voice coaches. If you want feedback for your voice, how you're talking, how you're presenting yourself, how you're presenting your auditions, that is what a professional voice coach is for. Casting directors, producers, they don't have the time for that. Half the time, some of these guys, they've got to thumb through anywhere from 200 to 300 plus auditions, and they've got a week in order to do it. So you do the math on that, 300 auditions, even if they're 60-second auditions, you could listen to every audition front to back to back throughout the entirety of it, and it's completely engulfed their time. So one thing I will make abundantly clear: do not ever expect a casting director to give you feedback. That is what a voice coach is for, or even ask another voice actor. There's one thing I can say right now is fellow voice actors, I've said it before, you'd think with it being a gig economy and a limited number of auditions that everybody in this industry would be at each other's throats. They're not. I have voice actors ranging from the just getting off the ground to established in video gaming. I've even got some that are established in anime and film careers. And I am not hesitant in order to ask these people for feedback, because it's the charm of the community, is how supportive we are of one another. If we ever see a voice actor that's like getting down, I'm like, oh, well, I didn't get this. There's always like tons of comments. Like, you can do it. You can build yourself up. Don't let yourself get down. And that's one thing that I'm really glad about getting into this, is just how supportive the community is. If you want feedback, ask for it, but don't expect you to get it from a casting director or somebody that you've auditioned for. That's not what they're there for.
And talking about feedback, as you mentioned that, I'm probably kind of guilty of, with this podcast, for example, trying to force people to say, what do you think about the podcast? What do you think about the podcast? I understand that it's not probably the best. Yeah, like you said, it's the best way is just literally ask for feedback, but never expect for feedback, which is why I kind of like, it would be great if people like every single person that listens to us, I know people listen to us. I do know that because I see the stats and everything. The only problem I'm probably not that happy with is lacking that feedback of whether the likes or dislikes or comments. And then because it pushes the podcast a bit further away for people to discover, for new people to discover. But I still love to know the feedback, what people are getting. But at the same time, we do get sometimes feedback, and the most obvious one are the negative ones. The negative feedback always sticks out to you most, even if it's like every positive feedback everywhere. But one negative comment will always stick out.
That's kind of human psychology 101 in of itself, because let me present a scenario to you, okay? You go to a grocery store and you get the best customer service in the whole wide world. How inclined are you in order to look at that person and go, well, thank you for being so nice today? Very little.
Yeah.
In all the years that I've ever worked in retail, even as a graphic designer, as a mechanic, not once has a customer ever said to me, "Well, thank you for being so kind and being so polite." And I mean, okay, I can't say never, because once in a great while I would get it. But it's not like every customer would go, "Oh, well, you were so nice, you were so great, you were so well spoken, you took care of my stuff relatively quickly, etc., etc." What I do hear is, "Oh, well, you didn't get this done in time. You didn't do this. You didn't," all the negativity. Negative emotions and negative things stick in a person's brain a hell of a lot longer than a positive emotion does. And that's a sad fact. It is. You will remember, you stub your toe in the morning, you're going to remember that shit all day. But if you walk past it and you don't stub your toe on the curb, you're not going to remember that for the rest of your day. It just happened as it naturally should have, so you don't think about it. I think that's a reason why whenever we ask for criticism or anything like that, and we don't get anything back, we should kind of look at that as, oh, I guess we're doing everything good, all right, because nobody's going to complain if things are going right.
Yeah, I have a problem with because of my mentality. If everything is going really smoothly and good, I'm like, so there's gonna be a train crash. Can't speak.
Things are going too good right now. I'm waiting for the fucking
and
shoe to
here you go.
drop.
It happened. Here you go. I couldn't speak. It's gonna be a train wreck somewhere. I'm just waiting for that. But when it comes to feedback, I still remember some older videos where people like really disliked my video for for whatever reason. For example, I said don't buy Hardline Premium because it will be a ripoff. Of course, people disliked it, but whatever. Or maybe because I don't know.
Okay, we both kind of said that. I told everybody not to buy it on PS3, and then
we got downvoted for that really badly. I mean, I'm talking.
Oh yeah, we got down. Not only did we get downvoted for that, but my most viewed video is my Hardline PS3 review, and I flat out said, "Don't get it for PS3. Wait till next gen. That's when it's worthwhile." And I kind of caught some flack for that, but at the same time, was I wrong?
Hardline really with all the dislikes we got back in the day, we were right in the end of the day. Because we were talking like literally, I'm not saying we were always right, but we just kind of like see it from an objective, realistic way, what's happening. And I think that's what happened. And it's always like that. When people like get out of their way just to speak the truth, usually they get ranted about or disliked because they don't want to accept that this is probably the truth. But then months later it comes out it's the truth, and then like those people are quiet usually. But of course it's not always like that. I'm generalizing here as much as possible.
It probably has more to do with the fact that when they were handing out rose-colored glasses, we kind of looked at them and went, "Nah, we'll take the clear ones."
Yeah, pretty much. And
don't get me wrong, I love Battlefield as a franchise. I always have, I always will. I mean, it's not like they can't do no wrong in my eyes. I'm a realist on that level. I'm a realist on everything.
Yeah, everyone should be held on the same level of scrutiny, including us. Doesn't matter if we're a small YouTube channel or a big YouTube channel, doesn't matter. Our podcast or anything we do in general in our lives should be held on the same level as everyone else, because it's only fair and, I mean, fair.
It creates an even playing field. It's not like, oh, well, we're special because we bought her up.
Yeah, it's always not like that all the time, sadly, because real life doesn't work so smoothly. But the most obvious criticism I always got from Battlefield 1 podcast and this podcast, or at least people memeing me about this and always making fun of me, is my cringy intros. Listen, I try to improve my intros as much as I can.
What's fucking ironic about that? And I'm going to say this right now. I have recorded like 3 or 4 different intros for you for podcasts, and not once have you ever used them.
I was planning to use them. I was editing them, but something happened and everything was cancelled. I can't remember what happened, but there was a reason for that. And I can't remember what was the reason. I don't know what it was
either, because because I did one for season 1 of the Battlefield podcast. For the Battlefield 1 podcast. I did one for season 2 and the back half of season 2, and then I did one for this, and they never got used.
Yeah, creative stuff. That's what happened. It's because the creative mode. Like, I don't know how to describe it. When you're in creative,
I'll tell you probably what it is, dude. It's if you go with a scripted intro, it kind of loses that little bit of the off the go natural feel to it, and I think that's part of the reason why they were never utilized. It just got rid of that casual, chill moment from the get go. you get an off the cuff intro each and every time. It honestly, in my book at least, it makes the listener feel a little bit more relaxed and a little bit more at home, and it's like, oh well, this is a casual discussion, not like, we start a podcast off like, welcome to the Live Gaming Gathering podcast, where we all get together and talk anything and everything about gaming and gathering, and then all of a sudden, like, I'm talking like this. Like, that's jarring right there. So I honestly think that's the reason why we never did it. It just made it sound more natural to just use your long-winded rambling intros.
But even right now, like, I try my best to be as natural as possible. I still sometimes sound robotic as hell, no matter how much charisma I put. Maybe because I need acting lessons, I guess, or something. I don't know. I was never.
I'm telling you, dude. Just watch a couple of. Just take. I'll link you to Anthony's YouTube page a little bit after we're done with this, dude. Just look over some of his videos when it comes to just like speaking and your facial expressions and your body movement, and because all of that makes a play in it. I'll give you an example right now. I'm sitting here actually talking like this with a smile on my face. Can you tell? Can you hear it? Now I'm talking with a frown on my face.
Maybe
now
possible.
I'm scowling and I'm upset. I'm not. I don't look. You can hear the difference in the two tones. So it's all about how you carry yourself too. That I've learned.
Yeah, that's true. And yeah, it's just one of those things that I try to improve as much as possible, like, because I need to. But if we had like a really somewhat big audience, it would probably become a meme. It would be like people memeing, it's just Lanky with his typical stupid intros, as always, cringy intros. It's his thing. But of course,
it's a skill, and like all other skills, with practice makes perfection.
Yeah, but because we don't have like a big audience, sometimes we have a small core audience that I see that listening to us on a regular basis, because I see how many audio downloads we have and how many views we have and how many likes we have. I always see this the core audience, like it's a small core audience. Like me, I would say, imagine just us putting, like, I don't know, we rent a room and there's like 20 people come in and just listen to us what we're talking about. On that scale, when you think about it in real life scale, imagine bringing 20 people and just listen to you ramble about something. That's big. That's big, which people don't really understand. And that's how I usually think about when it comes to this kind of stuff, because I know we don't have the biggest audience. We're not the biggest channel. We are nobody on YouTube. When I think about that, yes, we have 20 plus people listening to us on a regular basis, while there's 10 or 20 or how many, God knows how many people joining once in a while. That alone kind of makes you like, maybe we're doing something right, that we have this core audience that always listens to us.
I'll put it this way. If I would ever to get into anything that would warrant me going to like MagFest or an animation convention or anything like that, and I have a panel and all I have is 15 to 20 people that would show up, I would be ecstatic. Like, because in all honesty, if I walk out for a panel into a room full of people, that's going to scare the shit out of me. Because as much as I am comfortable with sitting in front of a microphone and putting my audio out there for potentially hundreds of thousands of people in order to pick up and listen to, it's a completely different ballgame in order to walk in front of a literal room of people and go, shit, now I have to keep composure. Now I've got to mind myself and really hope these eyes don't judge me.
No, they judge you, all right? Or I mean, people always judge. That's the thing. People always judge, which is quite interesting. But yeah,
but that's kind of the fear of mine too. Is like if I'd ever have a convention like that, and I'd have to do a panel, like I'd be afraid, like I'd just sit there and turn into a damn sphinx. And I know people would be like, "That's not him. That's not how he acts. That's not how he is." So it just, I don't know. It'll be an experience that I'll have to. When I get to that point, I'll have to see how it is. I mean, I've talked to a bunch of actors who've had to do that before, and they're like, yeah, the first time usually sucks. You're usually really nervous. There was one voice actor who was like, I went to my first one with a good buzz, and it was nice enough. Got me through it, et cetera, et cetera. And then there's some that literally go to panels, a little bit on the buzz side just so to loosen up a little bit. I'm not going to put any names out there because I'm not getting anybody in trouble. But I mean, there's things that people do in order to be able to get over that crap. So I mean, it's something I'll have to experience and see how it is when I get there.
Well, again, me with my cringy intros, I just have to go through them and improve it as time goes on. It's been years, but I think I've gone better over like time went on. But I still know I can improve a lot and just make it more interesting, because for the people that listen, like why I mentioned the core audience, the reason I mentioned the core audience, because they know, that small core audience know that I'm a meme when it comes to cringe intros, but the new people don't. and that might think, oh, he sounds robotic as hell. I'm not gonna watch this, and he never comes back. So that's my biggest fear when it comes to that kind of stuff about my intros and all that. But yeah, making podcasts on a regular basis is quite difficult, and it's time consuming, and it takes a lot of work.
But at the end of the day, it's worth it. We wouldn't keep doing this if we didn't like doing it, if there wasn't some bit of fun that we're having at it. Because believe you me, if I'm not having fun doing something, I'm not going to do it anymore. And this is coming from the guy who walked away from a $17.50 an hour job because he was not having fun and enjoying his work.
Yeah, that's true. And not to mention, I'm trying to bring all different kind of people to the podcast. The problem we had, for example, with Battlefield 1 podcast, it was always like the same core group of people always come in the podcast. So maybe that's why it was like sounding a bit repetitive sometimes, because it's always the same people talking about the same thing over and over again.
There was that too.
Yeah, with this podcast, I try to be different, try to bring more people from different backgrounds. I already invited a couple of people that never featured on a YouTube video ever, and I just inviting them, like, hey, do you want to talk about this or whatever it's on your mind? And they said yes, and now I just try to figure out what's the best time for them to record, and is the internet connection doesn't suck, or they have a normal microphone they can use to talk or something like that, like whatever the reason is. I try to bring, for example, I invited a person just yesterday, and she said yes, and hopefully she will come, but she like not a big gamer, she's no one on Twitter, it's like she's just a person I know, and I want to bring this kind of people just to have a different opinion about something we discuss, because it's always nice to have a different type of conversation when people have different opinions in a like open environment where no one's gonna judge you for a different opinion, which is perfect. And I kind of want to encourage that. We already had more different people on this podcast than we had in Battlefield 1 podcast, I think so.
Yeah, because it was the same core 4 people like every time. It was you, me, Dark, Seth, and
sometimes
Andre.
Sometimes Carl Zops like came in, or Pronato or something like that.
Yeah, but it was actually between Seth, Clara, and Pronato. They'd rotate out, but I think for the core part of it, it was usually mostly you, me, and Dark, with the 4th one being interchangeable. Yeah, I think one episode we had like 5 people on there, and it was just complete chaos.
I think it was the Star Wars Battlefront one.
Because
when the first Battlefront 2015 came out, and it was the beta, and all was discussed, it was like 5 people.
Yeah, we all got together for that one. And I think the only other one that was like that, no, we didn't do one for EA Play. I want to say there was one other one where there was a bunch of people that we were all together.
And I can't remember. On this one, we already had Agent and Gian, who never really featured on... Oh, no, wait, Gian featured once. He featured once on Battlefield 1 podcast once. Because he was never a big Battlefield player, but he was like... I tried to encourage him to play Battlefield, because that was back in Battlefield 4 days. And it was kind of like interesting to have a different perspective from a player that doesn't play Battlefield on a regular basis. And
yeah, I think that's the reason why we brought him in, is because we were wanting to get somebody's viewpoint on the game at that current state and time from somebody who had never touched it before, and it just happened to be that Gian got his hands on it, and we were like, well, shoot, you're perfect. Come on in, buddy.
Yeah, and that's, like, for example, Adrian has always been charismatic in my videos, of the Comic-Con videos, or whatever we're doing, he's always been charismatic. And I decided to bring Adrian and Gian on the podcast because, well, it's a different conversation completely. For example, the second episode, like the second episode of this podcast, it was me and them two, and it was the most banter-like podcast we ever made. That's for sure. it was literally just banter everywhere, and that's fine because it's something different. It's not always serious like the first one we talked about CT or something like that. It's a bit more relaxed. It's a bit more, hey, just a bunch of friends talking about random shit.
It's like I said, the more natural and more relaxed we are with the production, I honestly think the more quality that there is behind it. Like the ones where because it's weird, the ones where we focus and we're just like, we've got to stick to this skit, we got to stick to this script, we got to stick to this schedule, we got to stick to this stack of topics, we got to stick to this. I think it puts a level of stress on everybody, and everybody's watching too much what they need to do and not worried about what's going on in front of them. And that's another thing that I've learned since I started doing voice acting is when you're reading, don't focus too hard on the script. you read through it, you get a little bit of it in your head, you kind of you check it out, you read ahead of it a little bit, but you don't, because if you stop and you focus on the words that you're talking, you talk a lot slower and you don't sound as natural. And that's been our thing. Like I've always said, the more natural we are, I honestly think the better off we are.
Yeah, there were moments when we were doing a lot of scripting and it wasn't that great because people like you said were focusing on what they're supposed to do instead of what's happening in front of us, and that's why the conversation sometimes haven't felt natural. But regarding that, I do want to maybe improve the quality of the podcast. I mean, this one. I mean, maybe have because the podcast we usually do is like an hour long usually, and I was thinking, okay, why if we do it a bit longer or a bit shorter, like. Or for example, why if we have a mid break in the podcast, like for example, at 30 minutes we have an ad break or something like that, and would that put a lot of stress for people and say like, oh, stop the conversation now, let's have an ad break? I don't know how I feel about that yet, but it just depends. Now, for example, imagine we had the ad break right now, and I think it will ruin the conversation itself.
Yeah,
but,
it would be too big of a pause in the middle of a conversation.
At the same time, I think it does create a bit easier listening experience for everyone instead of listening to the whole thing just for a whole hour, which I guess provides more. What's the word? I don't know how to call it. Organization, I guess. And I don't know how I feel about that, but that kind of stuff I have to go through when I'm editing a podcast or whatever. For example, I still need to figure out how. I know you can put podcasts on Spotify. And it would be amazing to have a podcast on Spotify, but I still haven't came around that just because I had to do other stuff, just to make sure that we have all the basic needs for the podcast to promote, whatever it is on Twitter or Facebook, whatever. It's just a lot of work, but I'm happy about that work, but it takes time. I think it just takes time. That's why I said before that the first episodes of this podcast will be rough. Just because we're trying to discover what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, we've still got formula in order to figure out. I mean, it's just a lot of it's there. A lot of the groundwork is there. I mean, obviously we've got all that established. It's fine tuning the machine in order to make it run a lot better. Personally, I wouldn't say let's go a little bit longer. I would say maybe a hair shorter because we do have a tendency to repeat ourselves sometimes.
Yeah.
Almost like we've got some kind of weird recording Alzheimer's where we forget what we've said 5 minutes ago. But here's the kicker. You go back to some of our beginning episodes, we were really bad with that. Like it would be like you would say something, I would say something, Dark would say something, and then we'd saying pretty much the exact same thing with different words for about a good 20-25 minutes until finally one of us realized that what the hell was going on, and then we quick change the subject. But we've gotten better with that. And I mean, I know I've done it once or twice here already. So I mean, it's hard to not do because you get caught up in the moment and you're just like, did I already say that? I better say it in case I didn't.
Yeah, it's true, and it's just
it happens.
It just happens. But practice makes perfect, basically. That's all it is. As long as we can continue doing this and, like I said, improve the machine, how it works and everything, have some sort of formula going, but formula that is not static, but it can be improved every time because you don't want to do the same thing over and over again. Again, repeating myself, but that's what happens. That's what happens. The vision we have for the podcast, at least my personal vision for this podcast, is to literally have a small core audience that comes back on a regular basis. But I do want to bring people a bit bigger than us, maybe, I guess, I don't know how to describe it, and let them talk about something they don't want to, can't really talk about or don't want to talk about on their own YouTube channels or social media, whatever they may be, whether they be developers or would be YouTubers or something else. I want them to come to this podcast, whoever they may be, to come to this podcast, be relaxed as much as possible, and just literally be honest about everything they feel like. And just without feeling being judged by some specific audience that they have a following, whoever the audience is. I just want them to come in here and feel relaxed and talk about something they really, really, really care about.
Yeah, I mean, there's time, and we're reaching out to people to gauge interest and see about getting more and more people involved in it. And it's a work in progress. And we'll get there. We'll get to the point where things will start clicking, and then it's back to the way it used to be, where we could just kind of sit down, bang it out, be as natural and as natural about it, and get her done, and then get it out there in the world and enjoy it.
Yep, pretty much. I'm thinking what else we can discuss here, because Laura's like, we've been recording for 50 minutes, so I don't know if we want to push for that 1 hour mark.
I think we've kind of pretty much covered the bases about everything. We've discussed how far we've come. We've discussed what we're doing. We've talked about how we've managed to change and improve ourselves over time. We've talked about careers. I think we got a good bit of ground covered today, and I'm happy about it.
Yeah,
Especially in a 50-minute time frame.
I'm actually glad that we discussed all this stuff, just because it makes me a bit relaxed, just to let all the stress out and thinking, okay, this is what's happening, and please bear with us. I guess it's one of those situations like, please don't judge us too much, because we're still working on the system itself. So hopefully people can appreciate that end result that we're trying to achieve that. So hopefully people like that, and I hope they're gonna enjoy this specific episode, just because we talk about, like I said, all different kind of stuff about content creation in general. And I have some notes on my on my list right now. Like, I want to talk about demonetization on YouTube, how YouTube is a bit hard to create content right now with their systems, algorithm. This I mentioned Spotify, iTunes, Patreon. Yeah, I'm not a fan of Patreon, just because why the hell we need Patreon in the first place? Not even gonna mention that. Something. Yeah, I think that's it.
International law and having to duck bob and weave around COPPA, COPPA's been beat to death already, and there's plenty of videos out there discussing about it, and I'm not going to put my 2 cents in on it. It's something that should have been enforced properly from the get-go, and now there's a lot of channels that are getting completely screwed over because of it, and it sucks, but it's a fact of life. It's just you got to be as flexible as possible in this industry in general. I mean, we're entertainers, so to speak, so we've got to learn to be flexible, and if we're not, then it's going to come through, it's going to be evident, and it's not going to cause for success.
Yeah, pretty much. Okay, I think we're just going to end on that. So
yeah, I think we're good on that note.
Yep, and so thank you for whoever has been listening, and thank you, Ray, for joining this casual personal podcast where we talked about random shit that we care about. And thank you for our audio listeners or YouTube listeners, wherever you're watching the podcast or listen to the podcast. Thank you so much for sticking with us, and thank you so much for caring what we do and actually making a difference. Even though you may not say anything, you may not leave a like or dislike or a comment, whatever, but you just listen to us, that alone is worth a lot. And that's important. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you, everybody, for sticking around. Thank you, everybody, for being fans this entire length of time. Thank you for anybody and everybody who's supporting me in this little trip of mine. There are a lot of people that I know tuned into the podcast that are also supporters and fans of my work. I thank you guys very much. Anybody and everybody, it doesn't matter how little bit of support you guys put in. It all adds up at the end of the day, and it all does mean a lot to us. And it is essentially what keeps us going. We're not making a shit ton of money. So you guys, your support.
Listen, we're not making any money.
Speak for yourself.
Oh, bitch.
We're not rich by any means, but what we are rich in is support and good people who listen to our content. And I am excruciatingly, well, I guess excruciating isn't the word for it. I am extremely grateful for anybody who listens to any of these productions, even if you just get halfway through it, get fed up with our crap, and just hit the stop button. I'm grateful that you took the time in order to listen. I'm grateful for anybody who takes the time to do that. So on that note, I'm going to shut up and close myself out. Thank you guys very much. Follow me on Twitter. You guys can keep an eye on where I'm getting cast, when I'm getting cast, and when everything happens, up to date, because pretty much the second I know is the second Twitter knows. That's the best way to keep tabs on me. Other than that, I've got nothing else to say other than, again, thank you guys very much. And thank you, Tom, for having me as always.
As always, and hopefully it's going to continue as usual. And thank you for our listeners. And like Ray said, all the links are in the description, Twitter, email, whatever. It's always been there, and you're always more than happy to interact with us in any way you like to interact with us, wherever that may be. So thank you so much, and we're gonna see you guys on the next one.
Bye-bye!
Your hands upon a dead man's gun, and you're looking down the sights. the seams atone.
Hello there, everyone, and welcome to Live Gaming Gathering, where we gather to talk about game. No, wait, fucked up. Already fucked up. Already fucked up. Hello there, everyone. Damn you. Okay. Peace and quiet.